Virginia Hall, and I'm here to introduce you to Roger Rule, author of The Rifleman's Rifle and host of this series of episodes, Special Guns with Roger Rule.
Thank you, Virginia, and welcome. And welcome, viewers, to my 17th episode of Special Guns with Roger Rule.
What do we have today?
In the last few episodes, we've been featuring mostly the evolution and revolution of shotguns. In a few of my episodes, we had taken some intermittent look-sees at the important bolt-action rifles that have influenced the custom rifle industry, the Mausers, the Mannlicher Schonars, the Magnum Mausers, and the most improved Mauser in the way of the Winchester .364 Model 70. As this premier Model 70 was being phased out in 1963, there was a newcomer entering the field from Finland that American riflemen were just becoming aware of. I'm speaking of Sako Limited. Over the years, I've learned the correct Finnish pronunciation is Sako, not Sako, like the watch. Whether you know how to pronounce it or not, you'll run into more folks that say Sako than those that say Sako, because that's the way it was mispronounced for so many years, and I'm one of those, so I end up saying it wrong most of the time. At that time, I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and there was a large gun dealer downtown, C&R Specialty. As memory serves me, it was a big dealer that had a distributor ship with Browning and Weatherby, Winchester, and Sako, among others. They had a large inventory of new and used handguns, and they also had a large stock of used long guns. I first went in there looking for a .364 Model 70.
When was that?
That was about 1967, wee bit before your time.
Just a little bit.
I would soon learn that Missouri, being a state made up of woods and rivers and streams and tree-covered hills, was not the proper terrain for long-range hunting, which was the major market of the Model 70. Later, I'd learned that .364 Model 70s were much more plentiful out west, where there were large open vistas. But back to C&R Specialty. I got to know one of the owners. Maybe he was just a salesman, but he carried himself and handled himself like an owner. His name was Bill. I don't remember his last name. In a short time, I purchased 4 handguns and 2 shotguns from him. So our friendship kind of cemented.
I bet.
One Saturday when I was in, Bill remembered that I wanted an old Model 70, and he hailed me over, and from below the counter, he pulled out a .364 Model 70 barrel in .257 Roberts, and it was dated in the 40s. Just to show me. And I complained I had not been able to find any .364 Model 70s and told him I was specifically looking for a .270 Winchester. He turned around and from a rack behind him pulled down a Sako Finbear in .270 Winchester in standard grade. He said, have you ever seen these? He went on to tell me that for every one he had sold, he had reports back that they were tack drivers. While the gun had some lines that were contemporary, like such as the squared fore-end and the flat panels of checkering on the fore-end, the rest of the shape of the stock was very pleasing looking to me. The pistol grip shape, especially the Monte Carlo comb and how the cheek piece just looked sculptured into it. The one I was looking at had a nice pistol grip cap, but it was the dark chocolate color of the wood and the obvious genuine hand checkering that really set the stock off, making those post-63 Model 70s that I'd been looking at just look all that much more sick. And then there was the metal. The Sako had an incredibly high-polished blue that looked great. When Bill pointed out the double square bridge receiver and the dovetails already integral to the receiver for mounting a scope or receiver sight, my attention was drawn to how well the flat tops of the double square bridges were finished. Also, the flat top of the breech bolt sleeve and the front sight ramp matched those. While they were polished and blued, they appeared to be checkered steel to break up the glare, and that touch added some real class to the gun. I was impressed. Bill then showed me a deluxe version, and at first glance it looked like a Browning Safari Medallion or a Weatherby. I told him those guns look too gaudy for my taste. I liked the first one I was still holding.
So did you buy that one?
I did. I ended up buying it, that rifle, and it did shoot factory ammo like a tack driver. Looking back, I think I was not so adverse to the deluxe and the Weatherbys and the high-end Brownings. It may have been more a matter of pocketbook, as I knew those guns were, and the deluxe Sako were much more expensive. I could justify my opinion because the standard version of the Sako Finbear resembled the old Winchester Model 70 standard rifle in many ways, and probably more so than any other gun on the market at the time. About 6 months later, when I was in again at C&R Specialty, this time buying an Ithaca SKB double side-by-side 20 gauge, as soon as, and this was from Bill, as soon as the deal closed, he said, "I've got something to show you." He moved around the U-shaped counter to where the rifles were. I was still in the shotgun area. And he brought back another, what appeared to be a Sako Finbear standard rifle. At first I was confused as to why he'd be showing me another gun just like the one I purchased. But as he got closer, I could see it was something different. Bill said, "We got these in just since the last time you were here." Then he shucked the lever, opening and closing the action, laid the rifle down on the counter on the gun pad in front of me. It looked a little bit like a Winchester Model 88 lever action, but with a Sako Finbear standard grade stock. Bill added, Sako calls this the Finnwolf. It is the finest lever action anyone has ever made. He said it looks like a Winchester 88, but it's all steel and it's much smoother with its rack and pinion action. I can't remember, but I don't think I really said anything. I was just amazed when he then picked it up and kissed the rifle and added, "You'll never beat this combination of smoothness and accuracy."
He kissed it?
Yep, a scene you don't forget. I was not in the market for another rifle at the time, but I'll never forget that introduction to the Finnwolf. Today we're going to be looking at two guns instead of one. I have located two great examples for this episode. But first let's take a look at Sako the maker and see how they merit inclusion into our special guns episodes. Unlike most gun makers, history doesn't point to any one man responsible for Sako's formation. We find that in 1919, when Finland declared its independence from the Russian Empire, the Civil Guard Gun Works set up business in Helsinki in a former brewery to continue repairing private arms and the Russian military rifles being used for Finnish service. The rifle repair shop became financially independent of the Civil Guard in 1921. In June 1927, they moved from Helsinki to an ammunition factory in Rigamäki and commenced making pistol and submachine gun cartridges. A few years later, in the 1930s, they formally reorganized as Sako. In 1942, they developed a little bolt-action rifle and a little round for it called the 7x33 Sako, which was basically a 9mm parabellum cartridge lengthened and necked down to 7mm. Production was interrupted by World War II. After the war, the improved rifle, then referred to as an L-46, went into production. The cartridge was well suited for black grouse and capercaillie hunting, their version of a turkey. That's a popular sport in Finland, Sweden, and Norway. Later, this gun would become L461 and marketed as the Vixen, and was introduced to America in 1949 and offered in .22 Hornet and .218B. In 1950, .22 Remington was added, and later .222 Remington Magnum and .223 Remington. In the early 70s, rifles with this action were renamed A1. In 1951, for larger calibers, Sako built some rifles using FN Mauser actions. In 1957, Sako launched a longer action version of their Vixen and called it the L57, eventually becoming the L579, marketed as the Forester. This would become what everyone refers to as their intermediate action size, and it was offered in America in .244 Remington, .243 Winchester, .308 and .308 Winchester. The .244 Remington was soon dropped, and the .222 .250 Remington was added. In the early 70s, rifles with this action were renamed A2. In 1961, Sako introduced a longer action yet for long cartridges such as the 30-06 and the 270, and numbered it the L61R, marketed as the Finbear. This action is called their long action, but it is the same size as the Mauser 98 standard action or the Winchester Model 70. With the introduction of the Finbear, Sako discontinued building rifles with the FN action. In America, Sako would eventually offer the new Finbear in .25-06 Remington, .264 Winchester Magnum, .270 Winchester, 7mm Remington Magnum, 30-06, 300 Win Mag, 338 Win Mag, and 375 H&H Mag. In the early 70s, rifles with this action was renamed A3. All three of these original Sako actions were based on a Mauser design with double square bridge receivers that were dovetailed to accept Sako scope rings or a special Sako receiver sights designed to slide onto the tapered dovetails. This was a first big improvement in bolt-action rifles, separating them from all other makers. But probably more importantly, since they had been working with small cartridges, the rifles they manufactured were made for the correct length of the bolt throw for the length of the cartridges. And consequently, Sako ended up with 3 action sizes based on the families of cartridge lengths. Their short action was a first. Some folks give Mauser credit for the first short action, which Mauser made for a short time before World War II. It was called the Kurtz action, Kurtz meaning short, but it was actually an intermediate length action intended for the same cartridge sizes as Sako's intermediate sized action, the Forester. Mauser had introduced the Kurtz for 3 cartridges, the 250-3000, or better known as the Savage 250, the 6.5 by 5.4K, and the 8 by 5.1K. So it was really Sako that was the first to develop a truly short action along with 3 different action lengths based on different cartridge lengths, and eventually produced all of them commercially at the same time. And Sako was the first to build those on double square bridge actions with integral scope ring dovetails, a big innovation at the time when scope sights were becoming the norm. And since Sako started with the smaller action instead of using the big Mauser 98 extractor, they opted for a revised version of Mauser's smaller extractor from Paul Mauser's model of 1884. It worked very well, and they continued using this design for their intermediate and long actions. However, it is the one feature that caused the Sako rifles to be push feed instead of control feed, a concept that wasn't that understood by the shooting fraternity until so much noise was made about it following the discontinuation of the control-fed Winchester Model 70 and the Browning High Power. But returning to the Sako timeline, it was in 1962 that Sako brought out the lever action rifle called the Finnwolf, chambered in .243 and .308. While many owners who used one of those thought these were great rifles, and I think so as well, the production of it and the Winchester Model 88 that it resembled only in outward appearance were both halted by 1974. Looking back at those two rifles now, it's been theorized that they look too much like a bolt-action rifle, which were all being scoped by then, and those who preferred the lever action remained loyal to the old-style rifle with the hammers that used open sights and looked like a traditional lever-action rifle. This would seem to be borne out and supported by the voluminous amount of sales of imported replicas of old Henrys and Winchesters for the last 4 decades. But between the Sako Finnwolf and the Winchester 88, there was never any doubt that Sako was well made, and there was an outcry by the Sako Collectors Association to bring back the Finnwolf. So in 1982, in answer to the collectors, Sako produced another 175 Finnwolf rifles for the Collectors Association. This time, they made it without a cheek piece so that it could be accommodate either right or left-hand shooters.
And when was this that you saw the first one?
First one I saw was CNR, especially in 1968. It's when Bill introduced the rifle to me.
And is Sako still in business?
In 2000, Sako Limited was purchased by Beretta Holding of Italy, and all currently produced Sakos are imported by Beretta USA Corporation, located in Akokee, Maryland. I can't pronounce it, Akokee. The current production is not within the scope of our message here today, but for our purpose of viewing special guns, Sako Limited stands in there with its own place in the industry of bolt-action rifles because of their 3-action links and because of their integral tapered dovetail scope mount bases built into their double square bridge flat top receivers, and the fact that they were well crafted and well finished and very accurate gives Sako their own place in the 20th century history of rifles. It couldn't be said better than the authors of Bolt Action Rifles by Frank D. Haas and Dr. Wayne Van Zoel when they wrote this, and I'm going to quote, "The modern Sako action has no peer. The Sako action is synonymous with high-quality material and workmanship." Close quote. So in the early years, Sako built these bolt actions with 3-action links in 4 different styles for a matrix of 12 configurations. You could get a Vixen, Forester, or Finbear in a standard rifle called the Sporter, an upgrade version called the Deluxe, a varmint rifle that was just referred to as the heavy barrel, and a 20-inch barrel variation with a full-length stock that they called the Mannlicher carbine. And today, here are 2 rifles we have to review. One is the Forester Deluxe model, the upgrade bolt-action rifle with an intermediate length action and a 24-inch barrel. The stock shape and finish was very similar for the Sporter. This is the Deluxe. The heavy barrel and the Mannlicher carbine were also had the same stock similar as the Sporter. The Deluxe, on the other hand, had quite a different stock in the way it was adorned and finished. For brevity today, I will be referring to standard stock, and that includes all 3 of the other styles that are not the Deluxe: the Sporter, the heavy barrel, and the varminter. When I say standard stock, I'll be referring to all of those. Unless I need to make an exception specifically for one of them. And for our second rifle, since I have here a Deluxe today, curiously enough, I brought one of the rare Finnwolf lever-action rifles.
This is the one that the guy kissed.
Yes. I've included it not only because the Finnwolf is in itself a curiosity, but also it shows the type of wood and finish and color and shape that you'd see on a standard stock on the Vixen, Forester, and Finbear in their sporter, heavy barrel, and Mannlicher carbine styles. This allows me to use a minimum of 2 guns to briefly cover the field. Both of these examples are in .243 Winchester caliber, and it is the deluxe version of the Forester, which is the one I thought was too costly back in the 60s when I first encountered Sako. Let's look at the deluxe Forester first. Sako used the number code L579 to designate the intermediate action. Checking for safety, I'll open the bolt. Let's remove the bolt. There's a bolt release is a button that you press while pulling the bolt out. It's a nifty mechanism. The bolt very much resembles a Mauser as it's one piece. In fact, I'll go over that in a minute. Check this for it is empty. So bolt handle is integral part of the bolt. It has dual opposed locking lugs up front. We can see the ejector slot through the left front lug and the small extractor right there alongside the right front lug. Moving down the bolt, here is a guide rib strip that prevents the bolt from binding, and it affords a very smooth operation of the bolt. Behind the rib is the bolt handle. It is dished out for scope clearance, and the solid bolt knob has a band of checkered steel for better grasping. Behind the bolt handle is the bolt sleeve and the cocking piece. A notch cut into the receiver tang forms a third locking lug, safety lug. Although the Sako action is a push-feed mechanism, it is one of the few exceptions that, designed with a small extractor by Mauser for the Model 84, a revised version of it, the bolt will hold onto the cartridge if the cartridge is inserted into the bolt face by hand. I've got a snap cap here. I'll put that on and show you that. So it does do that, which you don't usually see with the push feed. However, when feeding the cartridges from the magazine, like other push feeds, it will send the cartridge forward in the chamber, but if stopped short and pulled back, the cartridge will not come with it, as it would with rifles using a Mauser 98 extractor. So when I show you this, the demonstration, the bolt face holding the cartridge, this one actually does, yet the feed is still push feed rather than control feed. Let me demonstrate this. Putting the bolt back in the rifle. Loading a snap cap, not a live round. It's fully in the magazine. I just loaded it forward, and it did not, as you can see, it did not hold on to the cartridge. I'll do it again. It's just totally free from the bolt. If I do that with a Model 70 or a Mauser, the cartridge will come back with a bolt, and that's why they're control feed, and this is push feed. So try that with your Mauser 98 extractors, and you'll see where the cartridge hangs on to the bolt, or the bolt hangs onto the cartridge. This rifle has the original Sako scope rings and can be removed by simply using thumb and finger pressure to turn very large knobs that are checkered on the rims for grasping, or they're slotted to turn easily with a coin. Once the scope and rings are removed, you have to take it out a certain distance. We can clearly see the nicely finished flats along the top of the rifle from the bolt sleeve, the two receiver rings and the front sight ramp. They all match. Those 4 places.
Those look like high quality.
To describe them as flat and matted doesn't describe the look. Because of their highly polished and blue finish, the matting nearly appears as if checkered steel and adds elegance to the overall look of these rifles. It is a functional system. It deflects light and prevents glare for the shooter using the open sights. And in this case, the rifle was ordered with Sako's optional aperture sight that fits the dovetail receiver, got right here. Nice little sight. Turn it down. So that's how that works. But back to how they mitigated the glare. While there are other ways, such as sandblasting finish, Sako's method here gives the rifle much richer and quality look. Also, we notice that those male dovetails flats are tapered to prevent travel of the scope rings from recoil, and the rear base of the has a notch to match up with the little lug on the ring. Completely locks up the scope ring. The undermetal is machined steel and has a one-piece trigger guard with a hinged floor plate with a center bow release. This varied a bit. Some of the actions had a button release in front of the trigger guard like a Model 70. The trigger is serrated. The early actions were fitted with a trigger and sear which nearly duplicated the Winchester Model 70 system. The safety, however, is only a 2-position thumb switch located behind the bolt on the right side of the action, not a 3-position safety. The metalwork on both the standard rifle and the Deluxe had the same high polished blue, had the same matted receiver flats, and the same checkered bolt knob. The only difference in the metal is that on the Deluxe, there is a depiction on the floor plate that represented its model name, Vixen, Forester, or Finbear. You can see here. And these engravings were silver or gold filled, and their depictions were revised from time to time. The standard rifle came with a front sight ramp with a dovetail inletted silver bead and a sight hood or sight protector. The typical Deluxe was without sights, unless special ordered. Selling it without sights was in vogue at the time and matched what Weatherby and Browning were doing in their higher grades. However, the one I have here today has the front sight assembly ordered with Sako's proprietary detachable aperture sight that I just demonstrated. It's a fixture that is also highly polished and blued and matches the rifle well. For inscriptions, on the right side of the barrel, it reads Beaufort Steel. On the left side of the barrel, it reads Forester, made in Finland, followed by the Finnish proof mark. And on the top of the barrel, over the chamber, it reads Sako caliber .243. And on the left side of the receiver, it reads L579 and the serial number 26563, and that is followed by a Finnish proof mark. The floor plate is engraved with 2 deer surrounded by woods. The engraving is not high quality. It is merely a representation to reflect the model name. So it is the stock on the Deluxe that is the main difference from the other 3 styles. The shape of the stock has a Monte Carlo comb, fluted, with a full-formed cheek piece, with nice lines that are parallel with the lines of the stock. The cheek piece is not beaded. The pistol grip is long, extends below the stock, and the forearm is not rounded but squared with 2 distinct sides and ends with a reverse angle, and has a forearm tip. The wood on the Deluxe was always lighter in color overall, called Scandinavian walnut, but never dark brown like the other 3. Also, for the Deluxe, they tended to have more figure in the grain than what they used in the other styles. And if you look close at this one, you can see some fiddleback, actually on both sides, with some dark streaking on the upper right side. In going along with the trend set by Weatherby and Browning, higher grade Sako included a rosewood 4-in tip on an angle and a rosewood pistol grip cap.
I really like the rosewood treatments.
The rosewood adornments are set off with white spacers. The pistol grip cap is inlaid with a caricature of a tree representing the model name Forester. The inlay is actually wood from a holly tree. The butt was finished with a proprietary recoil pad with a webbed pattern, sometimes set off with a white spacer. This one is, some of them aren't. And finally, the stock is fitted with 2 sling swivels. Checkering patterns on the Deluxe changed over time, but early ones had skip line checkering. Generous on the grip with 2 panels, not the traditional point patterns, but given a new shape designed by Sako. The forearm checkering was a skip line checkering and 2 flat panels on the sides and arranged in parallelograms that paralleled the angles with the 4-in tip. Skip line checkering is a checkering pattern, and just as its name implies, the checker skips 2 lines every 2 line positions, and the end result leaves pleasant little diamonds scattered about the pattern. You see those?
Yeah, I think making those diamonds is what makes it look so clever.
You can see those on high-end German and Austrian guns too. The borders are single border and cut deep, almost looking mullered, but are actually the only unsightly feature of the Deluxe in my opinion. Now let's look at the Finnwolf. First, we're going to check to see that this is unloaded and safe. You can see it's empty. Sako used the number VL63 to identify the Finnwolf action. The serial number on this one is 1159. In terms of its stock, as I said, one of the reasons I included this gun today is to give you the idea how the stocks on the other 3 styles looked on the bolt-action rifles. It's that close. The shape of the stock has a fluted Monte Carlo comb with a full cheek piece. The radius of the pistol grip here is about the same as those on the bolt actions. And like the standard bolt actions and the Deluxe, the forearm is squared, not rounded, like a traditional forearm. The squared shape allows for 2 sides, and it's truncated with reverse angle, just like the standard bolt action rifle and the Deluxe. Where the standard stock really differs from the Deluxe are, first, the walnut is generally very dark chocolate brown, just like this one, and there is no 4-in tip. Second, on the Finnwolf here, the pistol grip is not capped. However, on the standard stocks for the bolt actions, you'll find both capped and uncapped variations. And some have a black hard rubber, the ones that are capped, it's a black hard rubber grip cap offset with a white spacer. The third difference is between the standard and the Deluxe is the butt plate is a Sako proprietary composition plate with a white line spacer, not a recoil pad. Still considering the differences, the checkering on the standard stocks is again like the Finnwolf, which has 2 panels of point pattern checkering on the 2 sides of the 4-in and 2 panels of point pattern checkering on the pistol grip. Unlike the Deluxe, the standard bolt action rifles and the Finnwolf do not use skip line checkering. It doesn't have those little diamonds. All borders here are double borders and actually look better to me than the checkering borders on the Deluxe. This is not machine checkering. It's executed at 20 lines per inch. It's hand checkering. And like the Deluxe, This one has the standard stock with accessorized with the two, and like the standards, the two sling swivels. Incidentally, for this Finnwolf, the metal is finished similar to the bolt actions, with all the steel being highly polished blue, and there is no aluminum. The front sight here is set up the same as the standard bolt action with a matted rib and a straight sight hood or protector. The receiver is steel, as is the bottom metal, and the operating lever. The magazine box appears to be made from stamped metal, but it remains of high quality, and the bottom of the magazine box, which is exposed when inserted, is of such high quality that it doesn't appear to be a stamping, and its bluing, while not quite as highly polished, goes well with, doesn't detract from the other highly polished blued components. For inscriptions, on the top of the chamber, we see Sako caliber .243, same as this gun. And on the right side of the barrel, we see Bullfors steel. On the left side of the barrel, we see Finnwolf, made in Finland, followed by the finish proof mark. And on the left side of the receiver, number VL63 and number 1159, followed by a finish proof mark. Working the action is very smooth. When closing, you can feel a very positive lockup. The trigger is serrated, and the safety is located conveniently behind the trigger. The 4-shot magazine box disengages easily when depressing the magazine release button in front of the magazine. It's conveniently accessed by a special stock cutout. Magazine inserts fully and tied up against the magazine well. Let's set this one back down. I'm going to get you one of these days. Addressing the mechanics, I'm not opening up this Finnwolf. I have seen blogs that try to compare the Sako Finnwolf with the Winchester Model 88. I do not have a Winchester Model 8 here to compare, but of the ones I've seen over the years, they are not finished on the outside nearly as well as the Finnwolf. I was told their receiver is aluminum, not steel, but I cannot attest to that. One blogger trying to convince everyone his Model 88 was better than a Finnwolf made a comment that the Finnwolf had some plastic parts, where the Model 88 does not. I can tell you that guy was an idiot.
Some bloggers will just say anything to get attention.
Well, I can attest that there are no plastic parts. Another blogger who read that and who claimed to own both guns responded, not only are there no plastic parts, but in fact the internal parts of the Finnwolf are machined steel, and the internal parts of the Model 88 are stamped. I'm a Winchester man, as most of you know, so I'm not here to knock the Model 88. It was a successful rifle, and it's still popular today among its devout followers. But for the interior of the two guns, even if you don't have both of them to compare, just search for the exploded parts views of these, and you'll be amazed at the differences that you can see. The Finnwolf operates with a right and left rack and pinion gear system. The exploded parts show this and label them. The Winchester M88 does not have a rack and pinion system. I read in the blogs where owners who have had both guns give the edge to the Finnwolf for the smoothness of operation. The rack and pinion design plus the machined steel components in a steel machined receiver would easily account for this. The racks on Sako's exploded parts list are part number 419, 2 each, both left and right are the same. The pinions on Sako's exploded parts list are part number 401 for the left pinion, part number 402 for the right. Looking at the Winchester Model 88 exploded views and parts list, there are no rack and pinion gears, and all operating movement is handled with springs and levers, and it's a mechanical design. albeit it must have been a good design to account for the success of that rifle and for the fervor that its owners still hold for it. It's just a sad situation that both these rifles were taken off the market in the same year, 1974, and yet both of them still seem to have ardent followers.
Nice.
But back to the two guns we have here today. They represent the best of Sako, whose bolt actions were used for Browning for their Belgium-made high powers, suited for medium-length cartridges for their Safari, their Medallion, and their Olympian grades. They also were used by Colt for the various grades of Coltsman, and even by John Rigby of London when they needed to build a rifle with an intermediate or short action. Sako definitely holds a special place among rifle makers in the 20th century in the world history of the worldwide gun industry. That's it for today. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, viewers, for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with others. If you want to get involved with these types of guns, I recommend gunsinternational.com. The owners are great people. I know them and have been using their website since they started. I find it the best source for both buying and selling any great collectible gun.